Hello, hello. Welcome to the Five Talents Podcast. I'm your host, Abel Pacheco. I interview the top commercial real estate investors and industry experts so you can learn from their experiences. So if you're an investor, a high W-2 earner, or real estate or tech sales professional that wants to invest in real estate without having to manage properties or leave your day job, then this podcast is for you. Or if you're already investing in real estate, but you're doing it part-time and you want to become a full-time multifamily or full-time commercial real estate investor, this podcast is for you too. You're going to learn a ton. You will learn from real-life multifamily investors and other professionals in the industry. They're going to share their blueprints for success, and I'm super excited that you're here. So I hope you enjoy the show. Hello, hello. This is Abel Pacheco, your host for the Five Talents Podcast. We're just super excited today. We have an amazing guest and a really good friend, a really good partner, somebody that I know is going to provide you guys a ton of value today. So make sure you have notepad, piece of paper, and if you're jogging or listening, in your car somewhere, when you get back home, you may want to rewind this one. This is going to be a good one. So Feras Moussa. Feras, thank you very much for joining, brother.
Hey, well, thank you for having me, man. Excited to finally be on the show.
Yeah, man, I'm super blessed. I'm humbled. I'm appreciative that you would join, and I know we're gonna have an amazing conversation.
And that goes both ways, man. You are one of a handful of guys that I genuinely appreciate and respect every time I talk with it. So,
all right.
It's both ways.
That's awesome. It's great to hear. Well, for those that don't know Feras, he graduated from the University of Texas, computer science degree. He worked at Microsoft straight out of college. So tech, you know me well enough. If you've been listening to our show, I have a long tech background as well. So he's perfect for our guests, our listeners. We have a lot of passive investors, Feras, and then probably a lot of first-time general partners, people that are trying to go from passive to active as well. And so, what I love about Feras, one of the many multiple things, but he really learned or fell in love rather with real estate. Started Disrupt Equity. They have a vertically integrated company, but he went from Microsoft, probably turned a lot of heads, and people asked him, what the heck are you doing leaving the tech company? Started his own, which we'll let him talk about, but a true entrepreneur at heart. And then also, fell into the multifamily side of it. He probably saw, we'll ask him with the benefits of multifamily as well, but he's raised millions of dollars for many multiple multifamily syndications. He owns and operates literally thousands of units in the United States across multiple markets. Feras, how many total deals have you done? How many have you gone full cycle? How many are you still in today? Give us the broad perspective.
No, so currently we have about 1,500 units currently, right? We've sold 3 deals full cycle. We have another one we're selling, and currently after that will be about 7-8 properties all in. So mostly throughout Georgia and Texas. At some point we'll grow into Florida, but we'll see where that is. COVID kind of slowed that one down a little bit. We probably would have been in there by now, but kind of put a little bit of a brakes on some of them. So
and all in, that's, just ballparking this, we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars of real estate transactions, whether you sold it or you have it. Hundreds of millions, correct?
Yeah, about 100 million, a little over 100 million, I think is kind of where it all shakes out at. Oh, I guess it depends on how you value the current stuff, right? So we've definitely added value on the current stuff. We have a deal that just refied at a $4 million kind of appraisal value. So kind of in that range.
That's amazing. So what we're going to do, I'm going to turn it over to Feras. I'd love to start with just, who you are, and we'll back up into what you're doing today. So tell us a little bit more about yourself.
No, like you said, for me, I'm a tech guy. I've always been a tech guy ever since. It's funny. I tell people, very first thing I ever made money on was a computer game where for those of you that know the games, I played Diablo 2. I was one of the top Amazons in USC, and I was like, I learned to trade, right? I get an item, you learn how to trade it up and trade it. You kind of learn a lot of sales skills, right? Which is, I know, something, Abel, you're pretty good at. But, you kind of start to learn a little bit of sales and marketing to some degree, and, finding what people want and how do you add value, all of that, right? And I remember I just had this guy that mailed me $300 of cash, and I didn't think I'd get it. And in hindsight, I'm like, what the heck was I thinking? It's like a middle school giving out an address, but I got the cash, give the guy the item. And so, got that, and then really got into web development high school, right? That was my job, right? Friends were doing, jobs that whatever, McDonald's, In-N-Out, whatever you call it. And, for me, I had the web company going on, right? And so again, I learned a lot about that. And, I think one of the eye-opening things for me, at least kind of through that transition, was initially I was making stuff for other people. Then I started making stuff for myself, right? Because I saw one of the things I made for someone, it was a stock market simulator, all real stocks, but fake money, right? And I literally built this thing in a weekend, and I sold it to a guy. His name is Eric. I still remember him. I'm still in touch. And, I sold it to him, and a month or two later, he was paying me to make updates to it, right? And I saw that he was making more money a month from it than what he had sold it to me for, or what I had sold it to him for. And as a high schooler, I thought I made a lot of money selling it to him. And I'm like, wait a second, there's other things there. So I kind of got that little bit more of that entrepreneurial mindset, right? So I started making my own stuff, and then I started hiring other people to make stuff for me, right? As I kind of grew in that. And so, that was always the vision. That was always what I was going to do. And, college happened, and Microsoft was accidental, right? I did kind of career fair. I really wasn't planning to go, and, did Microsoft, loved it. And I told myself, all right, I got to put it on my resume, 2.5 years and I'm out. And so I did that. And I ended up staying a little over 3 years, just because I wanted to leave not mid-release. I wanted to leave at the right time, right? And so still have a great relationship with all my kind of coworkers, friends, and I did really well there. And, from there, I literally forced myself to leave and jump and kind of go start my own thing, right? And like you're saying, Abel, a lot of people think you're crazy. What are you doing leaving Microsoft? But, Microsoft's a comfortable job. But for me, what gets me excited is building something, right? Doing something bigger, harder than most people. And, and being able to kind of steer that ship, right? That's kind of what gets me personally excited. It's less about the money. It's more about, can I go build a company that people love working at, that's doing cool things, that is growing, right? That's what gets me excited. And so did that, had a software company for several years. And then, like you said, it kind of accidentally got into real estate. And so I'll pause there. Any questions? Yeah. I don't want to go on this long here. No. I know how it goes.
Yeah, no, this is good. The builder mentality is something that I hear a lot and experience myself. And I stuck around an IT hosting company, Rackspace, for like 10 plus years, and in the hosting industry a while. Not because of the tech job. It was cool playing ping pong and having all this, really cool, stuff in the office. But the cool part was it felt like we were building a new org every couple of, technology updates, or going from old school hardware to virtualization to cloud, and whatever it was, you were building something new. And I stuck around a long time because I felt that feeling, right? But you, like you said, hey man, that from an entrepreneurial journey, man, that kind of fed the opportunity. I'm going to go build it, and I want to go do it myself. And for those that stick around in the IT world too long, or any other professional career, man, those golden handcuffs are real.
And no, they are. I knew that. I saw that happening. I'm like, I got to get out of here before it gets too permanent, right?
Well, kudos to you, because you took a leap after 2 to 3 years, or 3 years, right? And so you started and you freaking knocked it out of the park, man. So you tell us about your first jump. What was that entrepreneurial? What was the first company you built?
First jump was a software company, right? So it's funny because it was called Two Guys in an App. It was me and one of my best friends, and we should not have called it Two Guys in an App, because we grew more than two guys. But that's how it started, right? Yeah. And we had built apps on all the different platforms, and really kind of taken an analytical approach to figure out what things could generate revenue, things like that. So that was going well. And then it's funny, we doubled down. And so kind of after several years, I started investing in real estate for just single family, right? I started that. Actually, my first purchase ever was a fourplex. So maybe go on that. So I had the software company. I was city hopping around, still based in Seattle, but I was kind of doing 2-month stints wherever, because I was remote, right? Mm-hmm. This is my office. And I moved back to Houston. And basically over the course of the first 4 months, I had already had an offer on a fourplex that I had gotten accepted. And in 4 months, I closed on a fourplex, my house, and a rental. So did all that. It was kind of boom, 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 and got a taste of real estate, right? I was doing the single family. The fourplex is kind of an accident route. And at the same time, on the software side, we were building property management software. So I kind of got two different views of the real estate world, right? Yeah. So that was kind of, did that, and we tried to double down on the property management software. And it ended up not working out, because I think we pivoted too quickly, trying to go for a much bigger market. And now that we have our own property management company, yeah. As much as I thought we had built the Hummer, and our software was amazing. It was the best software. It was really, really good.
Yeah.
But what I didn't realize is how important sales and marketing is, right? Those two things are critical. And I
Yeah.
learned that, it's not just about having a cool product, it's about having real customers and a real roadmap to build that up, right? That's one, things. And then the other piece of that too is just understanding the real business impact, right? If you're going to try to go into out of the B2C business to consumer and be more in the business, B2B, right? Or even B2E enterprise space, you have to realize for us, property management is so fundamental to the way a business operates that if they're already using something, it's way too hard to rip it out. And what I mean by that is, let's say tomorrow, we use RealPage one site, Resman. They come to me and they say, look, I will give you $1 million cash to get off of one site and use Resman. I couldn't just take it. I have to really think, because that's a lot of work to redo all of the business, all the processes, right? And so I think I didn't really, because now that we have our own management company, I see just how, I like to call it like a parasite. It's so deep inside that you rip it out, you kill the host, right? And so the problem is, if you're selling it, it's not a short sales cycle, right? It's a long sales cycle. And really your best customers are the guys that are growing it just at the beginning while they're still figuring out where they're going to start, right?
Yeah.
And so, and so I kind of learned a lot from that business, right? And what we did wrong, and we should have stayed in the B to consumer space, but that was really the vision. That's what the gap we were solving. We got probably, what's the word I want to say? We got too optimistic, thinking we can go into, the business space. So instead of the guy that has 4 or 5 houses, which is who we were solving for, instead, I'll go to the property management company, I'll bring you 200 units in one go, right? So learned a lot from that. And then, at the same time, as I got more on the real estate side, I was going to do my own small apartment, and luckily it didn't work out. And, started Disrupt Equity, right? And really named it Disrupt because it's got that tech spin, right? There's a lot of guys, that have $1, $2, $3 million sitting in the stock market because they've been at a tech company all their life. They have those shares, and all they know is stock. They don't know anything else, and it's easy. You click a couple buttons, and now I have, I'm invested in 10 index funds, whatever, right?
Yep.
None of them really understand real estate, and the ones that think they do, they take a very naive approach, right? Everyone knows how to Google. They search real estate versus stock market, and like the number one result is what? It's, hey, real estate appreciates 2.5% a year. Stock market average, 11% the past 50 years, right? And so they're like 2.5, 11. Very naive look at it, but they don't, we both know, there's a lot more. There's different pillars of real estate that really combine makes it a really powerful vehicle, right?
Yeah.
And so, Disrupt Equity started kind of tailored more to those guys, and with the mindset of not doing the mistakes that I made early on. So always focus on building the brand. The most valuable thing you have is the brand. Build, the sales, the marketing piece of that, but also add tremendous value to people, right? And so
well, those are
kind
awesome.
of definitely learned from that mistake, and not to make that again, right? So I think luckily that's been, I think that's worked out in our favor, and just continuing to push the limits, right? And maybe one other thing to add, and I'll pause, Abel, is the thing that I realized. Why did I leave Microsoft, right? Outside of my personal entrepreneurial interest, right? It was really the vision that I had was that there's a lot of smart guys working at our tech companies that but guess what? There's smart guys working at tech companies working on tech problems, right? Your Rackspace friends are working on, how do we build a better cluster? How do we have more efficiencies, right? None of them are going into other more dated industries and figure out how do we apply the things that are the norm in tech to those industries, right? So my vision was, hey, leave tech and go apply tech and build, software in an industry like real estate that's really dated, right? Not as many people have made that jump. But what I realized, after going through all that is right now, starting software companies is hard. And there's a lot that are in my head. I have to stop myself from starting one because now I'm so deep in real estate, I see all the problems, right? But the initial thing that kind of what I think helped us is realizing it's less about starting brand new software. It's more about using all the tech that's out there that is the norm for guys like me and you in tech, right? And tie them together, right? You thread that needle in a way that is, instead of me having to go build something, super specific, instead, can I tie 10 things together to give us a really competitive product, right? And maybe a good example is like a car, right? Toyota assembles the car, but they're not building the airbags, as we all know. They're not building the tires. They're not, they're putting it together to make something really valuable, right? And so that's kind of the thought process for me that I'm seeing. And it's less about doing something from A to Z that way. It's more about how do I tie things together? And I think, that's kind of what led Disrupt Equity to grow. And then similar on the management side, really just how do I tear that business apart and put it back together in a modern way, right?
Yeah, yeah. That's those are all good. I mean, great insights and things to kind of take from your original entrepreneurial journey, why, and then how you're applying them, to today. Even the mindset, like you said, most tech investors, like myself, I had this huge. I don't want to say huge, but I had a big stock package. I was a senior director, whatever you call it. I had over 60 people on a sales team. I had many multiple
You're one of those
managers.
wigs, all right? You're one of
I
those wigs.
think I was definitely getting there. And I had a lot of stock that vested over a 4-year period. So every time they would give me more, I was like, oh, great, I'm rich. And then I'd talk with my wife and we'd say, well, can we spend it? They're like, no, because it vests every year. So I got 25% every year. And then depending on if it was up or down, if I was in a vesting period, if I could actually sell it, then if it was up or down. So when those times it was open,
Yeah.
it was low, and the times that it was not, it was super high. I go, well, I think we have X amount of dollars, but we it was like magic money, and it would go down a couple hundred grand, at a time, or up a couple hundred grand, and we would say like, babe, we didn't really lose it or gain it. It was never ours in the first place. So
Uh-huh.
that was during
I
the
know the
run,
feeling.
and even when we left, I remember sitting down with HR and HR's there and they have this kind of package and, probably some stuff I shouldn't say or whatever, but the parts that I
Uh-huh.
can talk about, they were like, here's this in writing, or here's this one, if you leave, you don't get this one. And I go, I'm going to leave.
Uh-huh.
And I remember them like, looking at me like, are you, do you want to take a couple days to think about this?
No,
And I
I
was
had
like,
that. I know
I'm
that
good.
exact feeling. Same thing, man.
Uh,
The best thing starts, and I guess maybe it was harder for you. I got lucky that the time I was at Microsoft was the time Microsoft was flat in stock, so it's
mhm.
not like it was snowballing. Versus, I had an offer from Amazon too at the time, and it's funny. Had I taken the Amazon offer, I
Yeah.
mean, my shares would have been worth an insane amount, right? Amazon was much smaller
Yeah.
12 years ago than it is now.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
maybe for better or for worse, I didn't take Amazon, but
Yeah.
it would have been much harder. Like if my stocks, if I was given X amount of shares and now, whenever I'm ready to leave 2, 3, or however long later, right? If that's worth 10X more, it's just that much harder. So yeah, I know
And
exactly
they're
what you mean.
they're pivotal decisions, but like it's no different than somebody saying, "Hey, I am going to, in my W-2 job, if forget about stock, and there's somebody saying, I'm going to go in all in, I'm going to burn the ships behind me, and I'm going to go in on real estate, and this is how I'm going to do it." And everyone's decision is relative, but at some point, you kind of make that switch to say, you know what, I could build someone else's business and make
Mhm.
them a lot of profit, or I could do it for myself. And kudos to those that make the leap, man, make the
Yeah.
jump. So that's
But I
awesome.
do recommend for your viewers, don't make the leap 100% without kind of getting something going, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So
So
it's also not easy to do the other side of it. So kind of try to do them in
yeah,
tandem as long as you can.
I love that. How long did you invest in real estate and start your business? And before you really said, "Hey, disrupt, I'm going all in." Was that a year,
Several
2 years,
years. I
3 years?
mean, no, it's a several years, and it just and it's ultimately it also depends on people's different types of job, right? Like
Yeah,
how involved or not involved is it? So I think that thing. So, mom, just
that's a
my
good.
advice for most people is go as long as you possibly can, right, while
Yeah,
still maintaining your sanity. And so,
it's a good
that's the big piece of it.
it's a good qualifier. I invested 10 years while I was working and doing real estate. And this is single family, mind you, but it was investing for 10 years before I said, I'm going to go all in.
Yeah.
So some people look at that and they go, oh, you made the jump. I'm like, yeah, dude, but I invested for like 10 years prior. So
And you didn't
uh,
jump. Your jump wasn't your income then go to zero. It was okay. Now you're shifting. You're going to make less, but your real estate was making something, right? So
correct. Yeah, absolutely. Well, anyways, this is a great mindset. So now let's talk about your current business. So you're in X number of deals. You guys went from taking a property management company where you used to outsource. Now you're doing it vertically integrated. Give us a high level picture, and then I'll probably ask you a few questions about this.
yeah. So I mean, disrupt equity, right? We obviously focus on finding assets and finding good opportunities for our investors, raising the equity, and then acquiring that asset and operating it, right? Now, previously we used to use third-party management, and what I've since realized is third-party management is broken. Like it's a really dated business. there's a lot of problems. And we've had 5 different management companies across all of our different deals. So we've seen the good, the bad, the ugly. And, ultimately that led to us starting our management company. And as I was talking to you even before this, right, I mean, it was almost out of necessity, right? Like things are dire. We had to kind of grab the reins and get things going. And so started our own management company. We have a woman who's, the head of it. She's a rock star, knows the business inside and out. And really our deal with her was, hey, she's had her own management company previously, but it was like, look, you steer the ship, but you're going to have to be willing to rethink everything about it, right? Because we knew that, it was just such a dated industry. There's an opportunity to go in and disrupt it, for lack of a better word, right? And really rethink that business. How do I give owners super visibility, super accountability, get everyone working off the same thing, et cetera, et cetera. And so, started Disrupt Management, obviously with our own portfolio, and that's gone very well. And, doing third party now as well. So really in our product kind of, it sells itself in a lot of ways because we are just doing things so different than everybody else, right? It's been word of mouth. So, and it just starts with what I was telling you earlier, bringing things from the tech world and just tying them together to build a package, right? And, systematizing it different than anyone else is. So,
Yep. Yeah. And if you're a passive investor listening to this conversation, right? Some of the beginning probably applies a lot to you, but as you're looking at operators and you're looking at other multifamily teams to kind of invest in, these are the things that you want to ask about and kind of start to peek behind the curtain a little bit, because you want to know how they're doing it. Are they managing it themselves, or imagining it with someone else? And, now that I'm, the more that I learn about it myself, the more that I realize, hey, there's not really a right or wrong way. It's a matter of like, if you can do this most effectively, whether it's professional property management or you're doing it, hiring somebody else out or hiring inwards, if it gets done correctly and you guys are pros at doing it this way, that's the way that it's going to turn profits, right? So Feras doing it themselves, taking it in-house, right? Hello. You're listening to the 5 Talents Podcast. I'm your host, Abel Pacheco. If you're enjoying this podcast, then I know you're serious about achieving financial freedom. Are you ready to create your own path through multifamily investing for yourself and your family? Then I know you're going to appreciate our Investor's Guide to Multifamily Investing. It's titled Tackling Commercial Real Estate the Easy Way. We use this guide to invest ourselves in $93 million worth of real estate. So we're going to show you the basic mechanics of multifamily syndications and how to evaluate your next passive investment opportunity. So the best part, if you subscribe to our podcast now, leave us a review and a rating. I'm going to give you a free copy of our ebook. So please take a moment to do that now. Once you've done that, go to 5tcre.com/ebook, 5tcre.com/ebook. Make sure to let us know you left a review and we're going to send you a free copy. So thank you so much for subscribing to the 5 Talents Podcast. We really appreciate it. Tell us about the challenges of those 5, maybe it's a super high level, and then what you guys are trying to do to like fix them on your own. How does that work?
Yeah, so you said about the right or wrong, and it's not about right or wrong, right? It's about control and ultimately whose fault it is. Because, with me and my investors, ultimately, if something doesn't perform, as much as everyone wants to blame the property management company, and, we were there too, yes, the property management company screwed up, but ultimately it's still my fault. Yep. Right. And that's all, that's how I look at it. And it's just, if something doesn't perform, it's my fault, regardless of anybody, that I might be 10 people removed, ultimately we're the ones that are, we put that in place. And so for me, I used to think that I could build a layer on top of property management, regardless of who the cog was beneath it. Right. And you can identify the issues, which worked. The problem is you can't get people to care or react quick enough or really take more of an owner approach, right? Like I can tell them, hey, this is on fire, but I can't tell them to spray with a hose, the right hose, right? They might go get a fire truck and now I owe the fire truck 10 grand for coming out instead of getting like a water hose, right? I mean, that's the problem. And so ultimately starting our own management company was about being able to put in all the systems that I needed for as an owner, right? And I think property management has evolved where I think previously syndication is a newer concept, right? And, syndication arguably is tighter margins, right? And so things need to perform. So I feel like property management previously was more about the one-off owner, maybe the doctor that bought a property, he's busy being a doctor, hands it to a property management company, right? Maybe he bought the property property 50% leveraged, right? So debt isn't a big problem. And the property management company, they're doing their thing, but it's not about operating it well. It's not about getting the doctor a lot of visibility, right? He's trusting them to do everything. Whereas in our world now, it's about getting the right things done. We're operating effectively, moving a business plan quickly. I have 50 investors that are breathing down my neck. It's about that. And so rethinking management from that perspective. And for us, I mean, it's been things like, I'll give you simple examples, right? And I'll tell you how we solve some of these, right? The simplest example, we have the weekly calls with the property management companies. Everybody agrees what should get done.
Yeah.
The next week, you get on the call, nothing of that stuff got done. Why, right? And so for us, we have the same task management system, the on-site, the back office, and the clients all use the weekly call is about going through it. We actually have a VA on the call that is transcribing and creating tasks that come up during the conversation. They all get assigned. And as an owner, you don't have to wait for the weekly call to follow up on things as a person, as a property management company. We also don't wait for the weeklies. It's about continuing to push that needle. And guess what? We get on the next weekly call. It's not about, oh yeah, you did mention that last week and I forgot. No, it's there in Asana. You haven't done anything. That's a problem, right? Who's dropping the ball? Simple things like that. All calls are recorded. We have them all recorded, transcribed, and saved, right? How do you get to that perspective, right? And even other things like, how do you audit a staff? Answering the phone is important, right? So now we have a team of VAs that will call every property weekly, and I get a little report of which property answered, which didn't. Did the staff introduce themselves? Did they not? Did they try to capture the person's contact information? Then, just simple things, right? Mm-hmm. But over time, we have that each of these things is one-off, that becomes 100 things, and now we have this really awesome system, right? Because every time something breaks, we figure out what could we have done better, and how do we add that as kind of our quality control piece. And so there's just so much. So all of these are just things that we did as pain points from these management companies, right? Even a simple one, like the biggest one, and this is the one that rubs me the wrong way because I've had this happen to 2 different management companies, is occupancy's down. Great. They need to go get leases. So they're like, yeah, the big problem is you got to get units turned. So they'll approve all sorts of stuff to get turned. Approve. Yeah, we got leases, boom, boom, boom. And in the course of 30 months, they rack up $150,000 of payables, right? And as an owner, they're not, you don't have enough visibility to see that's happening because, it still takes 20, 30 days for you to see stuff and invoices are coming in but then more importantly, it becomes a problem because not only are all of this is approved, no one has verified the work. And a vendor can see that, and a vendor might slip in an invoice for a flooring he didn't do here or there, right? And, it's just super lack of visibility or care, right? So for us, we force all maintenance that move out. They have to go document everything with a picture. We have an app on the phone, full documentation. At move in, they have to also do that. You can see before and after, and we can tie every invoice has to have a unit number. You can tie how much was spent on every invoice. Did the before and after make sense? Did something get stolen? Did something not? Right? Those kinds of things, right? Where we can make sure money is being spent effectively, right? And we give that access to clients, right? Because again, I tell clients, our goal is not to hide anything. The problem, and it's funny seeing how we've had to retrain some of our team that have been in property management to think differently. It's not about, painting roses for the clients. No, I'm like, no one wants the roses. Paint the worst stuff that's happening, right? Because as an owner, if you see the bad, you can help solve the problem, right? Versus, people try to sweep it under the rug and it becomes a real big problem 6 months later. So.
Yeah. Good. All good insights. No, this is exactly what I wanted to hear. So I could see your face. It's like, that was exactly what I wanted, man. So thank you very much.
Trying to rethink all of that. I mean, it's property management's got a lot of issues. So, I think that's what differentiates us and, disrupting the norms there, right? And really, and it's funny, like we took over deals that had $50,000 of AP, $50,000 owed to one vendor. Yeah. We actually had a original go walk it all. And they found flooring that wasn't replaced, that was invoiced. Someone that wouldn't care, they would just pay it and then move on, right? No one has verified that work. And it's frustrating because that's how you burn money, right? And I think we've been there. And in hindsight, I should have probably sued my previous management companies, right? Because it didn't make any sense how much was spent on flooring, right? And, and kind of talking to the staff, it was like, well, yeah, they let the painter come in. The painter they tell him it's going to be replaced. So he would get the flooring dirty. That flooring was only 1 year old. And so, I mean, it's just, yeah, nice. Bad water after bad water kind of
nice.
thing.
Well, these are all good nuggets for those general partners that are listening. This is exactly what we're trying to do when we quote unquote force appreciation. You're turning units, you have new renters coming in, you have them going out. We're talking about scaling 100 units plus. how in the world, are you going to manage, 10, 20 turnovers within a short period of time at once, and see, well, these are good systems you're putting in place to try to figure out, how do I track it? How do I make sure it actually happened, that I'm not overpaying, or, whether the invoices are actually being completed or not. So all of these are good items. And so that led you guys to kind of say, hey, I'm gonna change this up a little bit for your clients. Now you're talking about other operators, other
We're talking other
owners.
guys like us, right? And
Yep.
they've seen the proof of the pudding, right? And so
Yep.
that's led to them, liking what we're doing, and now we're growing that business by that. And what's interesting is that not only do we end up growing our property management business, and that's all great, but it actually gives us economies of scales for us and our clients. So it actually ends up benefiting, our investors, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of, which is the good thing. I'm excited to get enough mass. If I can get 10,000 units under management in San Antonio, for example, guess what? I'm going to go get a storage space. We're going to go import a container of flooring, and we're going to charge it back to the properties as it used, but that's heavily discounted versus doing the one-offs, right? One of my complaints of one of my management companies in Atlanta is, despite the fact that they have mass, they treat each property individual, and they bid each thing individual. And I'm like, well, I'm not getting any economies of scale from you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And and I get why they do it, because they're worried that property won't pay its bills. It's going to tarnish their name. But there's a way to do that correctly too. You know what I mean? And so it's not about just doing what's safest for you as a property management company. It's also what is about adding value to your clients, the properties, and how do you make that situation. So yeah.
Yep. That's awesome. Well, that's all good insight. So the problems that you guys were solving for are really your own internal ones. And then they became so good that they provided value for others.
We big our own stuff. So in Microsoft, we used to call it, we dog food. We eat our own dog food.
Yeah.
Right. So, I don't know if you guys must have called it that too, right?
Yeah, we said the same. Our email product and things like that. We would eat our own dog food, and we'd use our products ourselves. And there's another model that's very, I guess, prolific. I don't know if that's the right word, but Amazon, AWS, Amazon, the book company back then. Then they started selling other products, and then their highest rated products and most delivered, things like that. Well, as they grew and they continue to grow, they would solve a problem internally and figure out how to solve it for themselves. And it became so good that they started offering it to other companies. Hence, one of their biggest freaking platforms, which is AWS or Amazon, their hosting part of it, which just ate all the other hosting companies' lunches. And it's, billions and billions of dollars, however much.
Sorry, Rackspace.
Yeah, sorry guys. They ended up partnering with them later, but so that's just how it goes. And a very smart approach to business, because if you can solve it for yourself and it's valuable, then you can start offering it to other people. And then, like you said, you have scale for your own company, which we're talking about multifamily investing. And if I'm a passive investor, these things are really good to know. You're like, man, I want to be with a company that has the ability to scale and continue on, because I want my 50K or 100K to double as quickly as possible. So these are the things, right? So let's talk about that for a moment. For the passive investors, right? Somebody new coming in, they just heard this conversation. I'm like, man, we got into a pretty deep conversation about multifamily syndication pretty quickly. I just need to know how to invest some money. You've obviously helped. You've raised millions of dollars. You've talked to a lot of different investors and a lot of different scenarios. Give us a couple of nuggets for those investors that are new to the world. I'm trying to figure out multifamily syndication.
And it's about getting educated, right? For me, I'm the kind of guy, I read a lot of books, I listened to a lot of podcasts like this, and then I hopped in and figured it out. Get educated, right? And that's why we put together investoracademy.net, right? And really with Investor Academy, our goal is putting together good video content that just, we're sitting there spending 5, 6, 7 hours recording stuff, talking about different aspects. The first thing is get educated, understand everything that me and you have said. None of it is rocket science. None of it is something that a passive investor should not understand. Right? We haven't gotten into the weeds of, what does it mean to do a price catch up, or, no, we're not talking about really. We're talking high level. So if anyone listening did not understand something, go research it, right? But go get educated, read books. And another book I really like is the Millionaire Real Estate Investor. If someone's new to real estate, I think that book does a good job talking about the pillars of real estate, right?
Yeah.
So, what nothing to do with multifamily specific, but really what makes real estate a nice asset class. But get educated first and foremost, right? Then it's
Yeah.
about finding operators that match your criteria, right? Are they investing in the areas you want to? Do they have the types of deals that you want? Maybe you want big depreciation plays. Maybe you don't. Maybe you don't believe Atlanta has a good future. Maybe you do, right? Find investor operators in the markets, do the types of deals that you're looking for, right? And ultimately talk to people about them. Ask them who's done deals with you. Kind of talk to your investors, right? And I think some people tell me other operators aren't very transparent, whereas our MO from the get go is just be as transparent as possible. Like I'll tell you my worst deals. I mean, heck, we're talking about it. I'll tell you my
Yeah.
best deals, right? Be candid because everyone makes mistakes. It's about knowing how to recover from mistakes and kind of work past them and not make them again, right? And so talk to people, understand what that person has done, where are they going, what are their goals, right? Is it a one-off person? Is it a company? Is it a team? Is it not? Who are the partners, right? Who's invested with them? I mean, understand what you're getting into because guess what? Your $50,000-$100,000 is hard-earned money, right? And you want to make sure that you're placing it effectively, and the person that you're placing with cares about it just as much as you do, right? With me and my partner Ben, I mean, we were looking at it as we will give up our GP if we have to make sure our investors are whole, right? Like, it's for us, it's not about making a quick buck from one deal. It's about doing 100 deals and, building a business around it, right? And making sure that we value our investors' money, right? Like that's the first thing, right? Before we talk about return on money, we talk about return of money, right?
Yeah. Did my seed stay whole? Did I get it back?
Yeah.
And then after that, how much more did I make? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. Those are good nuggets for those. You gotta educate yourself. I mean, any professional that's listening right now, you have a number of years, a number of cycles, a number of hours in your profession that you've put into it, that you've learned, you've honed your skill and your craft, and that's why you're making a good amount of money to even talk about investing. Well, now just apply it to your investing world. Exactly what Ferris is mentioning. You've got to educate yourself and you got to put in some time and cycle. It's not just going to happen overnight.
And I'm going to say for those listening on the show, man, one thing about you, I always respected, man. Abel was at every single event and always the first row. So, be an Abel, right? That's what people need to do. It's you get really educated, you get around the right people, you start to learn how to do the business right and do it well.
Right? That's awesome. Yeah. Yes. Thank you for noticing. I love that.
I noticed, trust me.
I went to, I don't know how many cities I went to, and I joined, for the listeners that that are on this, they may have heard this a few times, but I joined like 6 or 7 programs in a couple of years, paid too much money, but went to a bunch of conferences, a bunch of real, all the cities. My wife was pregnant at the time, but we had that conversation, that heart to heart on this is where we want to go. And this is, we're going to have a sacrifice for a couple of years to gain this knowledge. Do I think it's worth paying for education? Yes. And do I think it's worth traveling while you're, having and she goes, babe, it's better to travel right now while I'm pregnant, because once the kids are here, we're going to have super less, way less time. Go now. And, we saw eye to eye, and, that was part of the motivation, was not just, I want to,
you got to tell her, let you travel, come down to Houston and spend some time with us, Abel. All right. So Houston's not very far, man.
I love it. I love it. Well, it's November time right now. My wife is, you'll find out about this, you'll find out about this now, which is, man, my wife is making sure that I'm like trying not to meet people, doing the extra like social distancing to the nines. But hopefully, God willing, next year it'll be a better moment for me for networking. But that's part of the reason we started the podcast, man. Let's get it on, right?
It's a way to get you to carve out some time to hang out with me, right?
Yeah. Let me make it a good excuse to go interview some people. I just want to hang out. I'm the extrovert at heart, man. Okay, so all of these things are amazing. We've spent a lot of time, just you dropped more than a few nuggets, man. But before you go, I have more questions. I have a few more, but let me make sure we put this out there. If anybody's trying to get in your world, if anybody's trying to invest with you, they're trying to learn more, maybe I'm a general partner, and I am in Texas, and I'd like you to talk to me about property management, or I'm an investor trying to figure out how to invest with you, or any one of the number of things. Where do I go contact you first?
Yeah, so I mean, disruptequity.com, that's the name of the company. That's the best place to reach out. feel free to send me an email, Feras, Feras @disruptequity.com. Add me on Facebook, add me on LinkedIn. I'm a tech guy, man. I'm everywhere at all the time. So
Yeah, I love it. All right, good stuff. So, a couple other things that I wrote down, right, is we talked about technology company. This being, I'm one of those tech guys. Uh, Prop tech. If you haven't heard this hashtag, I would check it out. Hashtag PROPTECH, prop tech. Yeah, I almost forgot how to spell. So check it out because you can find a lot of different property technology, for us, like the smart packages, the smart keys on doors, the smart software, things that they're coming out. So I heard, I think, you're not trying to make the smart locks, but you are trying to leverage the best in breed technologies to figure out how to get as efficient as possible on your properties, and we can just make as much coin as possible, among other things, right? So I think the tech stuff is cool. Tell us about the future. Where do you see Disrupt going in this stuff? Are you using this stuff, or are you trying to leverage more, or is it your software?
The stuff that you're talking about is not, not everything is applicable to every property, right? Different classes of property do different things, right? Things make sense here, maybe not there. Or things make sense from state to state, even, right? We're on what incentives are out there. I mean, there was a deal that we looked at really closely in Atlanta where the owner there knew, I mean, he had the diamond in the rough, like beautiful deal, but not a great area at all. But he knew how to play all the incentives out there, right? Between bonds, between every unit had a Nest thermostat, all this crazy stuff. And I'm just like, man, it was impressive. But that doesn't apply everywhere, right? So, something for people to kind of realize. And yeah, I mean, so we will use things as it makes sense. Do I have any big thing right now? I mean, for me, it's I am interested in thinking about how do we continue to refine property management, right? In that piece. And, for example, leasing, right? Is there a way to really improve that leasing process, that role? Maybe you don't need as many people, or maybe you need a different kind. Maybe you can juice your leasing agent if you have one, because a lot of properties aren't big enough to have a leasing agent. Right. But a lot of leasing can be done without that. Right. So how do you think, there's things like that are interesting. TBD. Right. I think, we've been in right now we're in the, fixing management from just all the fires that management has today. Right. Where just everyone does. The bar for property management in my mind is so low that, we even figure the obvious things. Next, we're going to refine, and then we start to figure out the peak, the cream of the crop thing.
Yeah.
Right. So.
Yeah, so you got to start at a foundation. You can't get fancy. You can't get fancy shooting you got to make sure you hit your free throws before anything else. So I think that's important. Hey, so you guys are also Disrupt, though. You're doing your vertically integrated property management. Talk to us about your other business lines as well, man.
Yeah,
I think that'd be kind of cool to hear.
No, so I think Disrupt Equity, right? It's almost it's the model that I'm kind of looking at as more of like the Berkshire Hathaway model, right? How do we find other businesses that are complementary, or we have kind of our piece, our team integrated into it? And for all those businesses, we're applying a lot of our systems, our tools, our processes, right? And really rethinking some of the approach of those businesses, right, with the right expert operator in that business, right? And for us, it's going vertical on multifamily, going horizontal on syndication, right? And so, how do you provide? To me, it's the guys that made the most money in the gold rush are the guys selling the tools, not the guys doing the mining, right? And so, how do you kind of get more of that as well, right? And providing, and you can make money mining, right? You gotta look at a lot of deals. It gets a lot of frauds, unfortunately, right? But then also, we have those relations with those people, and how do you really provide a best-in-class service in each of these things along the way? So, it's kind of where peak financing came along, where strategic insurance came along, and even Disrupt management, right? Where we have the expert, she's running it. We've been just providing a lot of the tools to process the system, right?
So. Yeah. Well, that's pretty cool. That's pretty awesome, man. Well, is there anything else today that I haven't asked you about or haven't talked, we didn't hit on that you were excited about sharing? I didn't hit.
Share anything. My favorite color is blue. One of my favorite guys is Abel. I mean, what else did we not go through? So,
I love it, man.
I mean, yeah. Now we hit on all the key stuff, and
okay.
Like I said, always happy to talk about anything that has value. So
right on. The last question that I have for you then is from a general partner perspective. So a lot of people are trying to cross this chasm from zero deals done as a general partner to one. We've heard the law of the first deal. Once you get your first deal, man, things start rolling. So if you're listening to this, you're like trying to soak up the nuggets to say, man, how do I want to get in the game. I'm not in the game. I'm on the sidelines. I see everyone else playing. They're scoring touchdowns. They're having a great time. And like, I am unfortunately not playing. So there's a lot of people that are trying to get from 0 to 1. And once we can get one, we can keep moving. Give some advice for those people that haven't gotten their first deal done. They've listened to a bunch of podcasts, or they're kind of taking notes, but they haven't actually gotten the ball. They haven't been in the game. What nuggets or advice can you give somebody who's trying to break in?
It's about adding value to other people. There's a lot of ways to get involved in a GP, right? And it's about finding people you like, build relationships with them, but figure out a way to add value, right? The simplest one is bring a deal. If someone has a real deal and they've not just send me every single deal that you happen to come across, it's, hey, I've done the time, I've done the work, here's my underwriting, I think this is a deal and here's why, right? Someone has a deal, I don't care if it's a 1 million, I do care if it's too small, but let's say it's a $5 million deal or it's a $100 million deal. If it's a deal, right now, deals are hard to come by. That adds value. We are more than happy to work people in, right? Disrupt Equity, we've grown because we're willing to partner with people. It's not just an us mentality, right? And so finding a deal is a good way. Helping, maybe people are boots on the ground in the market. Maybe they have construction, man. I mean, we have a deal that we're looking at selling in Atlanta right now. We have a gentleman who loved it. I mean, he comes from that construction background, really sharp. That deal had pretty much 30 down units, and he worked his butt off to get that deal humming, right? And that added tremendous value to us. He's on the GP, right? Raising money is very common too, but then you got to figure out what other roles are you going to take, right? But really, there's a lot of different ways people can add value, but ultimately make sure it makes sense, you're able to do it, and it's adding value to the right people. Because maybe someone doesn't need asset management, you're the best asset manager because they have an in-house asset manager, right? I mean, it's that, but it's really find people that are doing what you're doing. You bring complementary skills to them and, figure out a way to get in on that deal.
Yeah, absolutely. And you got to look back at for those that are, you're in a professional career, you have skills today that are special and unique to you. And you can't forget that you've taken a lot of time to refine those. Those are your strengths. You need to play to those and figure out where those apply to commercial real estate or to commercial syndications. And you need to use that. You need to leverage it. There's so much stuff you learn. You're amazing.
Yeah, I tell people syndication really, like, good syndicate, it's about project management on steroids, right? Like, we closed 3 deals within 60 days of each other. That's not about just finding, it's about boom, 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 right? Systematic, working through it and just project management, right? That's a good skill set to have. When you can have that regard, you could be a project manager at a construction site. Maybe that's your day job. I did it from program management on the engineering side. I mean, even if you were a person that ran I'm just making up something, a surgical office, right? And all the different surgeries. I mean, it's a skill set that's a lot of different roles can bring, and it's applying it to real estate. So.
Yeah, I love it. Well, it's been an amazing conversation, Feras, and I really sincerely appreciate your time. Yeah, man. I remember learning or hearing you on a podcast, taking notes, learning, and now it's pretty awesome having you on our podcast, and hopefully somebody else is learning from us in this conversation as well, brother. So
always enjoy kind of educating others and adding value. So.
Yeah, brother. Well, thank you very much. Again, my name is Abel Pacheco. I'm your host for the 5 Talents podcast. If you heard something you liked today, I would encourage you, we'd love you to subscribe, rate, and review our show. Reach out to Feras, give him a little note of encouragement as well, and get a little closer to his world. And I look forward to having you in mine as well. So we'll talk to you on the next show. Thank you very much, Feras.
No problem. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you for listening to this episode of the 5 Talents podcast with your host, myself, Abel Pacheco. Each week, we're going to bring you interviews from industry experts and commercial real estate investors who followed their dreams and achieved massive success. Before you leave, let me ask you a few questions. Did you enjoy this episode? Did you learn something valuable? Was your mind stretched to what's possible and what you can achieve? Do you want other experts just like the one you heard today? If you answered yes to any or all of those questions, then please take a moment to subscribe to the 5 Talents podcast, give us a 5-star rating, and most importantly, leave us a written review. Tell us what you liked. Tell us your favorite guest. Give us any feedback. I'm excited to learn and improve so you can get a more valuable show. So thank you again for subscribing to the 5 Talents Podcast.